Good evening, folks. It's a real pleasure to be with you this evening. At the outset, let me extend my own personal welcome to each and every one of you, and thank you for joining us this evening at the launch. For those of whom I have not met yet, I'm Dr. Chris Vass, the Director of Singapore Centre for Research in Innovation, Productivity and Technology, Murdoch University's first offshore centre in Singapore. Murdoch is an international research university. It pursues excellence in the select fields of knowledge production and dissemination. It has a strong record in research, teaching, and community engagement, providing the basis for its development agenda in the 21st century. The university focuses on three core strategic objectives that guide its current operations and future direction. And these are focused around the production of internationally competitive research, the delivery of world-class degree courses, and the active promotion of societal engagement and knowledge partnerships at the local, national, and international level. It is with this intent that we have conceptualized Innovate Singapore. Well, to tell you more and to formally extend our official welcome, I'd like to invite Murdoch University's Vice Chancellor, Professor Eeva Leinonen, to say a few words. For most of you all who know, Professor Leinonen has a background in linguistics and psychology with extensive international experience in higher education spanning Europe, Middle East, and Australasia. Prior to joining Murdoch, she has held positions as Deputy Vice Chancellor at the University of Wollongong, Vice Principal Education and Professor of Clinical Linguistics at King's College, London. Ladies and gentlemen, please make Professor Leinonen welcome.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to extend my warm welcome to everyone. It's so wonderful to see you here, and what an important event this is. I've been thinking about how the world is changing. And do you know, I thought that the word change is not so good anymore. What do we talk about? We talk about disruption. So change is not quite dramatic enough anymore. We need to talk about disruption. And people talk about the four big disruptors in the world at this point in time. They talk about new economies, particularly in Asia, becoming the sort of center of economic powerhouses of the world. And people talk about technology and automation. They talk about the aging population, and I was reading the Straits Times this morning, and the health minister there were talking about the challenge of aging population in Singapore, and how do we start to address some of those challenges, but there's also opportunities. And of course, globalization is one big disruptor. And do you know what is the most remarkable thing I find in all of this is that the speed at which the change and disruption happens. And you may have heard this before, but it took 38 years for the radio to reach 50 million people. It took 9 months for Twitter to reach 50 million people. And how long did it take for Pokemon Go? What do you think? 5 days. So disruption and change is the speed at which everything happens, which I think is the most remarkable thing. And we also know, when I think about, as a Vice Chancellor, about graduates and our students, I think about the workplaces that they go to. And the stats that you hear are things like, our graduates will have 5 different careers, 17 different jobs. And our graduates are really the creators of other people's jobs. I recently listened to this wonderful lady speak at an event. She's Jan Owen, and she's the Chief Executive Officer of Foundation of Young Australians. And she said something really important. She said that, do you remember when you were young and people used to ask you, what you're going to be when you grow up? That's not the question anymore that we need to ask. We need to ask, what is it the world that you want to create when you grow up? Such a big difference. And so as universities and all education providers, we need to be really thinking about how do we enable our graduates to become agile, flexible, creative, innovative individuals. And universities are not traditionally the sorts of organizations that enable that very well. I say that as a Vice Chancellor of a university, but we are really grasping that now. And some of you who have heard me speak before, I think it's probably just one person here on this topic, I've said some controversial things about this, because I said things like, in the way we assess our students, we tend to say you pass or fail. If you're passing or failing, what do you tend to do? You tend to be quite risk averse. You actually play quite safe because you want to pass. So we need to think about our assessment practices in universities to create those graduates that are agile, that are creative, that are entrepreneurial, and take risks, because that's what the world needs. And I have to say that Murdoch University is really leading the way here. And today, I think Innovate Singapore is part of that, learning in a different way. I wanted to say that in addition to, as Murdoch University, having a real mandate of the future graduates and employability and enabling that learning that is important, we also want to really play a key role in the shaping of the comprehensive strategic partnership between Australia and Singapore. It was signed in 2015, and now, I think it was last week in Canberra, it was reaffirmed. And that's where we bring closer innovation and research, Australia and Singapore, and people. Because without people, there's nothing. So you really have to create those relationships for people. And this, of course, is part of also the innovation landing pad in Singapore. And again, we want to be very much part of that. So Innovate Singapore 2016 is really important to my university's, our university's mission. And you know, what better way to get innovation going than galvanize students and trying to find solutions to modern day problems and challenges. And we are galvanizing our students through Innovative Singapore to look at the challenges that SMEs have in Singapore. And SMEs are the backbone of any economy, we know that. I think in Singapore, 90% of businesses are SMEs, 70% of the workforce work for SMEs. And some really important work that I read recently about that our staff in Singapore has undertaken with SMEs came up with some really interesting thoughts. And one of them was that the SMEs in Singapore rate themselves as being highly innovative in their culture. Well, that's good, very good starting point. But also we identified that they had challenges with management practices, embracing technology, and also collaborating externally. It's almost like there isn't the time in your small enterprise to find all of those collaborations and that innovation. So through Innovative Singapore, we have set our students a task. And that task is to find solutions to how can we improve management practices and external collaborations, and through that, then aspire growth in SMEs. So that's a wonderful, wonderful challenge for our students, and I'm very excited because I know the solutions will be brilliant. Now, we have amazing collaborative partners for our Innovate Singapore 2016. So Murdoch Singapore, Kaplan Singapore, Gemstar Technologies, and Commonwealth Bank of Australia. So thank you for being here, and I know we're on a panel in a few moments. And the winners of this competition have 2 days in Sydney, and they go to the Commonwealth Bank's Design Lab, and there they have first-hand experience of how customer problems can be addressed through design thinking approaches. That's very, very opportune and very innovative. And our Perth students who are doing a similar sort of exercise to this will join our Singapore students in Sydney. And imagine all the networks that they make through that and relationships that are important in the world. And then, of course, Gemstar Technologies, thank you for being our partner or partnering with all of us. And the winning teams will then have the opportunity to further develop their prototypes and work towards commercialization. And I have to say, universities are not very good at commercialization. I say that hand on heart, so we need to become better. And we do that by collaborating with external partners like Gemstar. So, I hope that I've given you the impression that I have wanted to create, which is that Innovate Singapore is a really essential part of Murdoch University's mission. And we are very much looking forward to amazing outcomes that come out of this competition. So thank you, everybody, and good luck. Thank you.